Picture this. You're in your bed, the one you've slept in 1,000 times. You know the exact texture of the pillowcase against your cheek. You know the sound the radiator makes at 3 a.m. You know where the street light comes through the curtain gap and draws that thin orange line across the ceiling. Everything is exactly as it should be. You wake up. Except, and here's the fun part, you don't. Not really. Your brain comes online like a laptop that opened before the operating system was ready. Conscious, aware, eyes open or closed, doesn't matter, you are there. You are present. You are thinking clear, coherent thoughts. You're thinking, okay, morning, or okay, middle of the night, or okay, I need to turn over because my arm is starting to, and then you try to move your arm. And nothing happens. Not like my arm is asleep and it's a little tingly, not like I'm groggy and slow. Nothing happens. Nothing. At all. Like trying to move furniture by looking at it. Like sending a message with no signal. Your brain says move, and the universe answers, no, not yet. Not for a reason, not for any reason you can fix, just no. And then the ceiling gets very loud in its silence, and the orange line from the streetlight is suddenly the only thing in the world. And somewhere in the part of your brain that is very, very old and very, very scared, something goes, oh, we are not okay. Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up here. Oh, hey there. I'm your host. I'm dead, technically, but more relevantly for tonight's purposes, I am extremely, intimately, personally familiar with sleep paralysis. Not from a textbook, not from a Reddit thread, not from a friend of a friend's story, from experience. From approximately 47 first-person experiences, give or take. I stopped counting the ones where I cried. Welcome. Let's talk about what's actually happening to your body when you wake up and can't move. Not the shadow on the ceiling, not the figure in the corner. Those are the highliners, the cinematic part, the thing everyone puts in their thumbnails. Tonight we're talking about what's underneath that, the raw physical machinery of paralysis itself, the way time warps, the way your mind negotiates with a body that has temporarily stopped taking calls, the horror you can't put in a thumbnail. You're going to learn a lot, you're going to laugh a little, it's going to get weird. I promise it's worth it. What is actually happening in your body right now? The sleep architecture nobody explained to you. Sleep is not a single thing. You already knew that, vaguely, in the way you know how planes stay up. You know there's a reason, you just don't think about it much. But here's the actual structure because it matters. Sleep comes in cycles. Each cycle is roughly 90 minutes. Within each cycle, you move through different stages: light sleep, deep sleep, and REM, which stands for rapid eye movement, which is the delightfully clinical way science describes the stage where your brain basically boots up a full hallucinatory experience and starts watching movies it wrote itself. REM is where you dream, and here's the thing about dreaming that the greeting card version of sleep science doesn't emphasize enough. REM sleep is physically dangerous, not because of the dreams, because of what the dreams might make you do. Your brain is not stupid. Well, it is in several ways, as we're about to discuss, but on this particular issue, it thought ahead. During REM sleep, your brain sends a signal, an actual neurochemical message down through your brainstem to your spinal cord that essentially says, shut everything down, lock the motors, cut the movement. Every skeletal muscle in your body receives the instruction to go limp. Your arms, your legs, your torso, your face, offline, disconnected. You are physically prevented from acting out your dreams. This is called REM atonia. Atonia, Greek for without tone. Your muscles lose their tone. They become what I would describe as aggressively uncooperative. This is a good system generally. This is the system that keeps you from punching your partner when you dream about boxing, or running into your dresser when you dream about running. Without REM atonia, you would be a danger to yourself and everyone in the room. There's actually a disorder where this system fails, REM sleep behavior disorder, and people with it do act out their dreams physically, sometimes violently. So the protection is genuinely protective. Sleep paralysis happens when the protection arrives at the wrong time, or more precisely, stays past its welcome. When you transition out of REM sleep and back into waking consciousness, there's supposed to be a handoff. Consciousness returns, atonia lifts, motor function comes back online. They're supposed to happen together. In sleep paralysis, they don't. Consciousness comes back early or atonia lifts late, or the handoff just fumbles, and you end up awake, aware, and completely physically locked. The brain is running, the body is not, and nobody told you this was going to happen. The timeline. second by second. The physiological breakdown you didn't ask for but definitely need. Okay, so you're there. You've woken up mid-atonia. Let's walk through what actually happens in your body, in sequence, because the sequence matters and almost nobody talks about it this specifically. 0 seconds in, the moment of awareness arrives. Your conscious mind is back. You are, on some level, you again. Thoughts form. You are aware of your room, of the time, of your position in the bed. You are, in the particular way that you're aware of all background sensations, of your own body. And your body feels fine. That's the part nobody warns you about. It doesn't feel paralyzed. It doesn't feel numb. It doesn't feel like anything is wrong. It just feels like you haven't moved yet, like you just woke up and haven't stretched yet. There's a delay between the awareness that something is wrong and the knowledge of what specifically is wrong. Your brain is still booting. The error message hasn't loaded. Then you try to move. Maybe you try to turn your head. Maybe you go for a bigger move, try to sit up. Maybe you reach for your phone, because of course you do, because it's the 21st century and the phone is always the first thing. Nothing. And here's what it actually feels like. Not the dramatic movie version, the real version. It feels like the signal left and never arrived. It's not resistance. It's not someone holding you down. It's not even like being pinned. It's more like you tried to honk your car horn and the horn just isn't connected to anything. The intention happened, the command happened, the result simply did not. 30 seconds in, your brain starts problem solving. This is both the most human thing and the most futile thing. Your brain is very good at explaining things. It does not like unexplained things. So it starts running hypotheses. Maybe your arm is asleep. Maybe you're just really groggy. Maybe you just need to try harder. This is the phase where people describe the sensation of pushing against something that isn't there. The enormous, exhausting effort of trying to force a signal through a wire that isn't connected, like mashing a button on a dead controller. The exhaustion is real. Your brain is spending metabolic energy trying to fire motor commands that aren't going anywhere. You are working very hard and achieving absolutely nothing. If that sounds frustrating, yes, correct. That's the word. 60 seconds in, about 1 minute, the breathing begins. Oh, I should tell you about the breathing. Your breathing is different in sleep paralysis, and this is where things get genuinely unpleasant in a way that's completely separate from any hallucination. Most of your muscles are paralyzed. Your diaphragm is not. Your diaphragm is involuntary, controlled by a different system, so it keeps working. You keep breathing. You will not suffocate. I want to say that clearly and early because a lot of people in sleep paralysis become convinced they are about to suffocate, and I do not want to be the person who built up to that reveal dramatically. You will not suffocate. However, your breathing is shallow. Your chest doesn't expand the way it normally does when you breathe consciously, because the muscles that assist that expansion are atonic, unresponsive. You're breathing on autopilot, diaphragm only, and it's enough, but it doesn't feel like enough. It feels like breathing through a slightly too small straw. Not painful, not even technically difficult, just not quite right, not quite enough. And when you are already panicking, not quite enough is extremely loud information. 2 minutes in, panic or its absence. Here's where the experience branches. Some people, not many, but some, do not panic during sleep paralysis. They recognize what's happening, they go calm, and they wait it out. These people are either very experienced with it or they are constitutionally different from me in ways I find personally insulting. Most people panic. Not panic in the gentle sense, full panic, heart rate spiking, adrenaline flooding, the old reptile part of the brain, the amygdala, the alarm system, the bit that's been unchanged since you had ancestors who needed to know immediately if something was trying to eat them, waking up screaming. Because from the perspective of the amygdala, the information it has received is, you cannot move, you cannot call for help, you cannot run. This is exactly what being prey feels like. Your ancient brain does not have a category for temporary neurological glitch. It has a category for you are about to be eaten. It goes with what it knows. 3 minutes in, and this is where the paralysis starts to feel different from the inside, where it stops being a medical condition and starts being an experience.
the ceiling becomes very important. The ceiling, or whatever you're looking at, the dark, or whatever's in it, the silence, or whatever sound is in it, the sensory world that you cannot change, cannot look away from, cannot interact with. You are, for the duration, a passive observer of your own environment. Whatever is there is there. You cannot affect it. This passivity, not the supernatural, not the hallucinations, just the pure existential passivity of being unable to control your own orientation in space, this, I would argue, is the actual horror of sleep paralysis. The hallucinations, if they come, are a response to it. They're your brain's explanation for why you feel so completely, fundamentally wrong.
Fast fact 1. The average episode of sleep paralysis lasts between 1 and 3 minutes. The average person experiencing sleep paralysis reports feeling like it lasted between 10 and 30 minutes. This discrepancy is not a coincidence. This is your brain's time perception breaking down under acute stress, which is its own remarkable neurological horror we'll get to shortly. Fast fact 2, approximately 8% of the general population has experienced sleep paralysis at least once. That sounds small until you do the math and realize that's roughly 640 million people alive right now. 640 million. That's every person in South America and then some. All of them, at various points in their lives, staring at their ceiling and being unable to move. You are not special. You are, however, in good company. Fast fact 3, your eyes usually still work during sleep paralysis. Most people can move their eyes even when every other voluntary muscle is offline. This is because eye movements during REM are specifically preserved, hence the rapid eye movement name. So while you cannot turn your head, you can look around. You're locked in a first-person horror game you cannot pause, but at least you have full camera control. Fast fact 4, screaming is almost always impossible. The muscles required to produce a scream are, unfortunately, exactly the muscles that are offline. Some people manage a moan, some people manage a faint sound, most people produce nothing, which, if you are counting on screaming as your plan, I'm sorry, I genuinely am. The myths that will not die. Myth 1, it means something spiritual is happening. True or false? Let me count the cultures that have assigned a supernatural explanation to sleep paralysis. The Hmong call it Dabsog, the crushing spirit. Across Newfoundland, it's the old hag. In Brazil, the pisadera, an old woman who sits on your chest. Japan has the kanashibari, which translates beautifully and terrifyingly to bound in metal. Turkey has the karabasan, the dark presser. Medieval Europe had the nightmare, which is where we get the word nightmare, and which was believed to be a demon that sat on sleeping people and crushed their breath. Every culture, every continent, every era. And here's the remarkable thing. They're all describing the same neurological event, the same atonia, the same chest pressure, which is a byproduct of the breathing pattern we discussed, the same shadowy figure, the same sense of a presence. Everywhere, always, humans having the same experience and reaching for the same framework. Something is here. Something is doing this to me. False. Nothing is here. You are doing this to yourself, or more precisely, your brainstem is doing this to you, which is arguably worse because you can't negotiate with a brainstem. But here's the thing. I don't say false to dismiss those cultures or those people. I say it because the fact that every human culture independently invented an identical supernatural explanation for an identical physical experience is one of the most remarkable data points in neuroscience. The experience is so visceral, so specific, so impossible to attribute to normal wakefulness that something supernatural is happening is a genuinely reasonable first hypothesis when you have no knowledge of REM atonia. The brain fills gaps. The brain is very good at filling gaps. The brain filling this particular gap with demon is not irrational. It's imaginative. It's still false. Verdict, false. You are not being visited. You are being betrayed by your own brainstem. I know which one I'd prefer, and I've thought about it. Myth 2. The paralysis means you're close to death. True or false? False. And I want to be very specific about this because I have watched people describe a sleep paralysis episode in language that suggests they genuinely thought they were dying. You are not dying. Sleep paralysis does not damage you. It is not a sign of a heart condition or a neurological disease. Your vital organs are fine. Your heart is fine. Your airway is fine. You are going to come out of this exactly as intact as you went in. The confusion is understandable. The subjective experience of sleep paralysis contains several things that are, in other contexts, associated with dying: inability to move,
inability to call for help, difficulty breathing, the sense of a presence, and a profound alteration of your relationship to your own body. These are, unfortunately, also symptoms of being in the presence of your own mortality. Your brain, pattern matching furiously in an acute stress, makes the connection. It's wrong. The only population for whom sleep paralysis should prompt a conversation with a doctor is people experiencing it very frequently, multiple times a week or alongside other sleep symptoms, because frequent sleep paralysis can sometimes be associated with narcolepsy, which is a legitimate sleep disorder worth knowing about. But a single episode, a handful of episodes in your life, you're fine. You are going to be fine. You were fine. I'm slightly bitter about this because I went through it approximately 47 times and I was fine every single time, which means I had access to this fact the whole time and simply never benefited from it emotionally. The body keeps no record of what the mind knows.
Verdict: false. You are not dying. You are inconvenienced extremely for between 1 and 3 minutes by your own neurology. Welcome to having a body. Myth 3. Sleeping on your back makes no difference. True or false? False, and this one is actually useful, so pay attention. Sleeping on your back, the supine position, significantly increases both the frequency and the severity of sleep paralysis episodes. This has been documented. This is real. The mechanism isn't perfectly understood, but there are 2 leading explanations, and I find both of them deeply annoying. First, sleeping on your back changes your airway geometry. It can increase the likelihood of mild airway obstruction, which affects sleep architecture, which affects how smoothly you transition between sleep stages, which affects how likely you are to fumble the handoff between REM atonia and waking consciousness. Second, sleeping on your back is associated with increased REM density, longer, more intense REM periods, which means more time spent in the state where paralysis can occur. The upshot is simple. If you have sleep paralysis, sleeping on your side reduces your risk. This is one of the most actionable facts in this entire script, and I'm delivering it in Myth 3 because that's how good I am at structure. You're welcome. Verdict: false. Back sleeping and sleep paralysis have a documented relationship. Side sleeping is in this context a protective behavior. Who knew lying on your side could be a medical intervention? I find it embarrassing that the solution was that simple. I slept on my back for years. What does this actually feel like? The part no textbook covers adequately. Here's where I slow down. I've given you the biology, I've given you the timeline, I've busted some myths. Now I want to tell you what it actually feels like to be inside this, because the clinical description and the lived experience are so far apart that bridging them feels important. This is the part where I stop being funny, mostly. You've earned it. You wake up, you are conscious, and the very first thing before you try to move, before you realize anything is wrong, is a sensation I can only describe as wrongness before knowledge. Your body knows before your mind catches up. There's a quality to the consciousness itself that is different, not dreamy, not foggy, hyper-real almost, too sharp. The room has too much detail. Every sensation is arriving with slightly too much intensity. This is actually consistent with what we know about REM consciousness and the way the brain coming out of that state sometimes overprocesses sensory input. But experiencing it, you don't know that. Experiencing it, you just feel like something is off in a way you can't name. Then you try to move and you name it. The panic that comes is not dramatic the way TV panic is dramatic. It is quiet and it is enormous. It fills you from the inside without making any sound on the outside. Your thoughts are very loud and very clear. That's part of what makes it terrible. This isn't confusion. You're not confused. You know exactly where you are. You know exactly what you want to do, and you know with increasing certainty that you cannot do it. You are trapped inside a clear mind, inside an unresponsive body, and the clarity makes it worse. Some people describe a sensation of floating slightly above themselves. Some people describe feeling flattened into the mattress as if gravity has doubled. Some people describe a vibrating feeling, a buzzing like there's electrical activity trying to reach the muscles and failing. I experience that one. It is as unpleasant as it sounds. Not painful, just fundamentally wrong in a way that your body has no precedent for and your mind cannot soothe. Time does something strange here. You know how time slows down in moments of acute fear, the famous millisecond that feels like minutes when you almost step in front of a car? Sleep paralysis does that, but sustains it. Each second is its own event. You are not moving through time, you are accumulating it. 30 seconds feels like 5 minutes, feels like forever, feels like always. Your working memory keeps turning over the same thoughts. Try to move, try to move, try to call out, try to move. And each loop feels as fresh and urgent as the first. There is no sense of progress towards anything. There is only now, and now, and now again, identical and eternal. This is why people report such inflated duration estimates. It's not that their perception is broken, it's that the normal cues we use to experience time passing, movement, changing sensation, interaction, progress, are completely absent. Time measured in movement has nowhere to be measured, it just pools. The emotional territory in those minutes is strange to describe because it covers so much ground so quickly. Fear, obviously, but also a peculiar grief, a mourning for your own agency, for the version of you that existed 30 seconds ago who could simply move a hand. A bargaining phase where you try smaller movements, maybe just a finger, maybe just a toe, maybe just the corner of your mouth. Sometimes a finger works, sometimes the smallest signal gets through. When that happens, it becomes your whole world, that one finger, that ambassador from the land of function. And then it ends, usually all at once. Motor control returns, sometimes preceded by a wave of tingling through the affected muscles, and you can move, and you do immediately, usually to sit up or to turn on a light or to press your back against the headboard and breathe. Just breathe with full chest expansion, appreciating deeply the mechanical luxury of a conscious breath.
The adrenaline takes longer to clear than the paralysis. Long after you can move, your heart is still moving like you ran somewhere. You sit there, technically fine, physically intact, and you try to explain to your nervous system that it's over, that you're out, that it's fine. Sometimes your nervous system believes you quickly. Sometimes you're awake for 2 more hours, every sound in the building too loud, checking that your hands still work by pressing them together in the dark. That's what it feels like, from the inside, exactly. The numbers you need to hear. Reality check. This is more common than you think. Let me give you context, because context is how data becomes real. Somewhere between 8 and 50% of people will experience sleep paralysis at least once in their lifetime. That range is wide because studies define the experience differently. Some require full paralysis plus hallucinations. Some count any episode of atonia with consciousness. At the conservative estimate of 8%, we're talking about 640 million people. At 50%, we're talking about 4 billion. 4 billion people at some point lying in their beds unable to move. Recurrent sleep paralysis, defined as multiple episodes, affects somewhere between 5 and 15% of the general population. In certain populations, it's much higher. College students, for reasons that will not surprise anyone who has ever been a college student, irregular sleep, stress, pulling all-nighters, sleeping on your back in a dorm bed at 4 p.m. after not sleeping the previous night, experience sleep paralysis at rates as high as 28%. In people with PTSD, rates go up to approximately 35%. In people with panic disorder, up to 34%. The overlap between the conditions that compromise sleep and the conditions that produce sleep paralysis is not coincidental. It's mechanistic. Stress fractures sleep. Fractured sleep fractures the handoff. The handoff failure is sleep paralysis. Narcolepsy is the condition most strongly associated with sleep paralysis. Nearly 60 to 80% of people with narcolepsy experience it regularly. If you're having sleep paralysis very frequently alongside excessive daytime sleepiness, alongside the sudden muscle weakness triggered by strong emotion called cataplexy, that is worth a clinical conversation. That is not tonight's message, but I'd be irresponsible not to include it. Here's the number I find most striking. The average person with recurrent sleep paralysis experiences it for the first time between 14 and 17 years old. 14, 15, 16. You're a teenager, you've never heard of REM atonia, you wake up unable to move, and the information you have available to explain this is ghost stories, horror movies, and the dark part of your own imagination. No wonder people have been building mythology around this for 10,000 years. No wonder every culture on every continent has a name for the demon that pins you to your bed. The experience finds people young, finds them uninformed, finds them alone at 3 in the morning with nothing but their own fear and a ceiling to stare at. Knowing what it is doesn't make it less intense. I want to be honest about that. I had sleep paralysis many times after I understood exactly what it was neurologically, and it was still terrifying every time. Knowledge is not a shield. But knowledge does mean you don't spend the next week convinced a supernatural entity has attached itself to you, which is, I would argue, a meaningful improvement. The worst possible context. Picture this. You're a first-year college student. It's 3 weeks into the semester. You've been sleeping badly.
New place, new noises, new anxiety, the specific exhaustion of being somewhere that isn't home and performing okayness at high volume all day. You finally fall asleep at 2 in the morning, hard, deep, the kind of sleep you've been owed for 2 weeks. You wake up at 4:15. You are on your back because the dorm bed is narrow and you always end up on your back by the end of the night. Your roommate is asleep 3 feet away. You can hear them breathing. You need to go to the bathroom. You try. Nothing. You think, okay, I'm groggy. You try again. Nothing. You are very awake, extremely awake, and nothing is moving. Your roommate is still asleep 3 feet away. You want to say their name. You try. Nothing comes out. The ceiling is a beige rectangle, and it is going to be the last thing you see forever. Obviously, probably, that's where this is going. This is it. It isn't it, you know that now, but on 4:15 in the morning, 3 weeks into college, on your back in a narrow bed, you did not know that. And the 2 minutes that followed were 2 of the longest minutes of your life, and afterward you lay there in the dark, too scared to sleep and too tired to stay awake, and you did not have a word for what just happened to you. Imagine having that word. Imagine knowing at 4:15 that this has a name, that it has a mechanism, that 640 million people have been exactly here, that it ends, that it always ends, that you are not being held by anything, that you are not dying, that you are experiencing a routine, if unpleasant, neurological mismatch that will be over in 90 seconds and leave no mark. Information is infrastructure. This is why I'm talking.
How to not end up here. Practical advice from someone who ended up here 47 times. Or, here is the numbered list of things I wish someone had told me, dark humor included. You're welcome. Number 1. Sleep on your side. I know I already said this in Myth 3. I'm saying it again because it's the single most impactful behavioral change you can make, and it costs you nothing. Supine sleeping increases sleep paralysis risk. Side sleeping reduces it. Get a body pillow if you keep rolling back. Name it something friendly. Mine was called Gerald. Number 2, fix your sleep schedule, or at least stop completely destroying it. Irregular sleep, sleeping at different times each night, pulling all-nighters and then crashing hard, dramatically changing your schedule on weekends, is a significant trigger for sleep paralysis. This is because REM sleep is disproportionately concentrated in the later part of your sleep cycle. When you sleep late or sleep irregularly, you get more REM. More REM means more time in atonia. More time in atonia means more chances for the handoff to go wrong. Your sleep schedule is a legitimate medical parameter. Treated like one. Number 3, when it happens, breathe. If you can direct your attention to anything, direct it to your breathing, not in a woo-woo sense, in a literal physiological sense. Slow, deliberate focus on your diaphragm doing its job. Your diaphragm is the one thing that still works, completely, reliably, voluntarily enough that you can pace it consciously. Controlled breathing reduces the adrenaline response. Reduced adrenaline shortens the subjective experience of the episode, even if it doesn't shorten the actual duration. Breathe. Number 4, try to move something tiny, the smallest possible movement, a fingertip, the corner of your mouth, blinking deliberately and repeatedly. The atonia is not absolute. It is complete for large voluntary muscles, but the edges are often softer. Small, sustained, deliberate signals sometimes get through, and when they do, they can cascade. A finger moving can sometimes wake up the larger system, can sometimes be the signal that prompts the motor control handoff to complete. Try small before you exhaust yourself trying big. Number 5, do not fall back asleep facing upward immediately after an episode. I know, you're exhausted. The episode was exhausting. Your bed is right there. But if you fall directly back into sleep from the same position that just produced an episode, you are statistically likely to cycle back into REM quickly and potentially experience another episode. Roll to your side. Give yourself a few minutes. Drink some water. Tell Gerald about it. Number 6, if it's happening frequently, more than once a month, talk to someone, a doctor, a sleep specialist, not because it's definitely something serious, but because frequent sleep paralysis is often a symptom of a treatable underlying issue, irregular sleep, high stress, untreated anxiety, or, occasionally, narcolepsy. All of these have interventions. None of these interventions involve accepting regular episodes of terrifying paralysis as a permanent feature of your sleeping life. You know, I had 47 of them. So, That's sleep paralysis. Not the visual spectacle, not the shadowy figure, not the demon from the mythology of your choice, the actual machinery underneath it, the thing that happens to your brainstem and your muscles and your sense of time and your relationship to your own body for those 1 to 3 minutes that feel like always. You know more now than you did before. You know about REM atonia and why it exists and what happens when it lingers past its welcome. You know that 8% of humans, conservatively, have been exactly where you were or will be, unable to move, staring at the ceiling, negotiating with their own nervous system. You know that sleeping on your back is a risk factor and that Gerald the body pillow is technically a medical device. You know that the chest pressure is breathing mechanics, not a supernatural entity, and that the time distortion is your stress response eating your sense of duration alive. You know that it ends. Always. Every time. It ends. I'm dead. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your evenings, but I spent a significant portion of my life being woken up by my own brainstem's administrative failures at 3 in the morning, and if any of what I've told you tonight means that the next time it happens to you, or to someone you know, or to some teenager lying in a dorm bed staring at a beige ceiling, there is a word for it, a mechanism, a reason, a reassurance, then this was worth saying. It's always worth saying. Now, if you got something out of this, if the information landed, if you laughed at least once, if you're going to sleep on your side tonight, subscribe. Leave something in the comments. Tell me what you want to hear about next. I have, as you might imagine, a lot of time on my hands. I'm dead. The schedule is extremely open, and I find that the best use of an open afterlife schedule is explaining the specific, strange, terrifying things that bodies do to people who are still inside their bodies and therefore still capable of caring. You're still inside yours. Take care of it. It's weirder than you think. Good night, or good morning, wherever you are in the cycle. Try not to wake up mid-REM.